There are some logistics that His Grace Ramananda Sakha Prabhu asked me to share. Because of the setup that we have today, I'm going to share the screen from my computer. So the devotees on Zoom, we won't be able to see you. So that's a disadvantage of this. But if you have a question, if you raise your hand, we won't be able to see. So it is requested to speak up if you have a question. Right now I don't see how many devotees are on the Zoom also, but just wanted to let you know that. And we can start with the prayers first. This is a shorter version. I hope you can see. Om Jnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sva Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dugdha Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat. This Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all Upanishads, is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita, Gita Mahatmya 6. Hare Krishna. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and thank you to Srivas Pandit Prabhu for allowing me to speak something on chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. You're all Bhakti Sastri students and worshipable because very few devotees in this world are taking it seriously to read Bhagavad Gita and what to speak of studying it on a systematic basis. So we'll start with chapter 7 and let me. I have older book, so this I don't know if you have seen it. This is an older version of Bhagavad Gita, very old one. So, we can start with how the chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita ends. So, as you all know, that Krishna speaks total of 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, and first 6 chapters, Krishna speaks about different kinds of yoga, karma yoga, then he talks about jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and Krishna saves the middle, the most important parts of the Bhagavad Gita for describing Bhakti yoga. And then the last 6 chapters are again mix of Bhakti yoga and other kinds of yogas. So it is compared to a sandwich where all the important pieces of the sandwich are in between and then protected by the 2 pieces of bread. So that's why the 6 middle chapters are considered to be the cream or the essence of the essence. And the introduction of this Bhakti Yoga starts from chapter 7. And 7 and 8 starts with the introduction of Bhakti Yoga. And the 9 again in the middle, like between 7 and 12, 9 again is the cream of the cream of the cream. So that's why the 9th chapter is the most confidential knowledge, where Krishna describes many aspects of Bhakti Yoga. So, if you see the chapter 6, I'm just going to chapter 6 because we'll go to the last verse of the last 2 verses of chapter 6, where Krishna is describing about a yogi. After describing everything, Krishna says, a yogi is greater than an ascetic, greater than an emphasis, which means a dhyani, greater than a fruit worker, which is a karmi. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. And then Krishna says, what kind of yogi one has to be? And then he says, and of all the yogis, the one with great faith and who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So now, since he's saying think of me, now how do we think of Krishna, right? That is the subject in chapter 7. And the way I wanted to give you an outline of chapter 7, so we all know what does this chapter 7 constitute. In chapter 7, the first 1 to 3 verses talk about what is knowledge and what is the glory of about Krishna. That is the first 1 and 3. Then Krishna talks about his energies from 4 to 12. What are his different energies? One is this empiric knowledge, which is his knowledge about his energies, and then he talks about his pastimes. Those are the 2 different kinds of knowledge Krishna describes. And then, after knowing these 2 kinds of knowledge, how do you surrender? The process of surrender is described from 13 to 19 verses. And from 20 to 25, Krishna describes about the demigod worship, the different demigods, why we worship, how do they worship, what are the results and everything. And from 26 to 30, Krishna describes why is one deluded in this material world and how we can actually convert the delusion to devotion to Krishna. Okay? So, as I mentioned, Krishna said to Arjuna, be a yogi. What kind of yogi one should be? Well, let's start with the first verse of chapter 7. So, I can say the Sanskrit and one of you can do the English if you would like. Maybe you can grab some mics. If they have one here, you can take. Text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Mana Partha. Do you repeat generally or how do you do? You don't repeat? Sometimes you do. Okay. I think we can do the recitation and then maybe you can do the translation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Mana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Jnasyasi Tachrinu. Somebody can read the translation from the temple room.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt."
So, the most important part here, Krishna is saying, Tachrunu, which means hear. So, if you see the process of devotional service, there are 9 processes of devotional service, starting with Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? And the first one and the foremost one is Shravanam, which means hearing. So Krishna is saying, first part is you hear. And who do you hear from? I mean, if you hear from anybody, then, sarpochista. If milk is touched by the lips of a serpent, that milk becomes poisonous. So that's why it is mentioned that you should hear from Krishna or his devotees. Hearing from Krishna or hearing from Krishna's unalloyed devotees is non-different. It's one and the same. So, in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions that the living entity has been described as a non-material spirit soul capable of elevating himself to self-realizations by different kind of yoga. So, when the yoga means actually to connect with the Supreme, right? That is yoga. Yoga means to connect. If you connect with Krishna through karma, then it becomes karma yoga. Even though you're connecting, your karma is involved, that's why it's karma yoga. If you're connecting with Krishna using jnana process, then it becomes jnana yoga. If you're connecting with Krishna by doing meditation or dhyana, then that becomes dhyana yoga. And then, if you're connecting with Krishna through bhakti, then it is bhakti yoga. So, jnana, karma, dhyana, they are all mixed, which means that there is some motive for you, which means you're doing things with detachment, but there is still no attachment to Krishna. But Bhakti Yoga, what you have is not just detachment from this matter, but attachment to Krishna. So that is the beginning of the Bhakti Yoga. And if you see these different kinds of yoga, they're all stepping stones in the ladder. If you see, there is a yoga ladder which say, there are different steps that people can take to reach the highest point. So people can see, once you do karma kanda activities and according to the prescribed principles, you might gain some knowledge, then you become a jnani, then you pursue the jnana, then you try to meditate, and then you can reach the highest. But not necessarily you have to take all the steps to go to the highest point. Example, you have stairs, right, whenever you go to a building, and you also have an elevator. If you have an opportunity to take an elevator by using Bhakti Yoga, you can use that. You don't have to take the stairs. So Bhakti Yoga is that process which you can do your yoga directly by practicing Bhakti, and you'll attain the highest destination. Okay, and in this purport for the 7.1, Prabhupada mentions the Bhagavatam verses from first canto, 2nd chapter, 17 to 21, where it starts with Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhutsatam. And so on, it goes all the way till Bhidyate Hridaya Granthas Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. So what the summary or the gist of all those verses in Srimad Bhagavatam says that it starts with hearing first. Once you start hearing about Krishna and his pastimes, what happens is Krishna, who is sitting as a super soul in everybody's heart, he cleanses the desire for material sense gratification from the heart of the devotee. And then once it is cleansed, then the devotee develops knowledge, and then he becomes fixed in devotional service. And once he is fixed and he continues to perform hearing of the pastimes of Krishna, then he becomes free from passion, ignorance, lust. And then after that, he becomes nishtha, which is fixed. And once he is fixed in devotional service, he becomes enlivened. You see that the devotee is always happy. And after becomes enlivened, he severs a knot. That granthi is actually the knot, which is a hard knot of this material attachments in our heart that is being severed. And then once that knot is severed, then you start understanding the Supreme Personality of Krishna as it is, and then you start rendering unalloyed devotional service to him. So if you see, all of these things happen starting with hearing. So that's why Krishna in this verse is telling Arjuna that hear. That is the most important thing. Okay? So now we can go to the next verse. After telling Arjuna to hear, the next thing Krishna will tell is Jnanam teham sa vijnanam idam vaksham yasheshataha yadgyatvaneha bhuyunyaj gyatavyam avashishyate. Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. There's some prasad there if you can take. Hare Krishna. So, anyone can do the translation?
I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know.
So, after Krishna tells us that we should hear, then we want to know that what we need to hear. Right? Like he's giving, before a class starts, the speaker tells you that, okay, today this is the outline of the chapter, this is what we are going to cover. So Krishna is telling that he is going to tell about phenomenal and numinous knowledge. Phenomenal means theoretical knowledge, which means about Krishna's greatness, which means his energies, his material energy, spiritual energy, the vast energies that Krishna possesses. That is a theoretical or the phenomenal aspect of it. Then he's saying that he will also talk about the numinous knowledge. What is numinous knowledge? Numinous knowledge means it is about Krishna's personality and his sweetness. That kind of knowledge which is being described is actually called as a numinous knowledge. So in this chapter of the 7th chapter, Krishna only describes his energies, which is mostly the phenomenal one. But in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about his personal interactions with the devotees. Like Krishna will tell about what kind of food he likes. He says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, you offer me with love and devotion. And then he talks about what kind of devotees, devotees are always my part, even if they make any mistakes. You cannot think wrong about them. Apichet sadurachara verse. So many things. His interaction with his devotees and about him, he speaks in the 9th chapter. So in this chapter, Krishna will mostly concentrate on the phenomenal knowledge. And it is mentioned, Prabhupada mentions in the purport also, that complete knowledge includes the knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both. So when you say, I think we'll come in the next verses, let's wait for it. And another point here is Krishna says that this being known, which means both phenomenal and numinous, there is nothing further remain for you to know. What does it mean? Which means, will you know everything about Krishna? Can we know everything about Krishna? Krishna himself doesn't know fully about himself, so he comes again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand what kind of rasa Radharani is experiencing by serving him. So Krishna is unlimited. We cannot know about him in all details, but Here when Krishna says nothing further shall remain for you to know, it talks about what are the principles that comprise Krishna's unlimited potencies. So we will know in principle who Krishna is. He's a cause of all causes and everything. But all the details about Krishna's every aspect, that we cannot know. That is unlimited. Even Ananda Sesh is trying to sing his Krishna's glories with his thousands and thousands of mouths. Still, there is no end to Krishna's glories. But in principle, all the principles Krishna is going to explain in this chapter. Okay, next is, the next section is verse number 3. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha. Want to read the translation?
Thank you.
Oh, you want to go? Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I should also go.
I can take it from there, yeah. Third one, right?
Oh,
For
it went to
one who is,
6th, okay.
Fight is, okay, 6th.
Oh, how did it go to 6 actually? My bad son. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Stefan, okay. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and for those who have achieved perfection, hardly one know me in truth.
So, yeah. So Krishna is saying many thousands of people try to endeavor for perfection, that is, try to know Krishna. And out of those who have actually tried to achieve perfection also, there's only hardly one or two who actually know about himself in truth. So, what does it mean? I mean, so different kinds of yogis, whoever tries to understand Krishna, right? They may understand some aspect of it. They may even come to the aspect where they know that Krishna is an impersonal Brahman, and there could be a Paramatma aspect of it also. But to know Krishna as a Swayam Bhagavan, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, is actually very, very, very rare. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that a lot of people say that people who practice Dhyana Yoga or other Ashtanga yogas kind of thing, Bhakti Yoga is very easy, it's very simple. It's too simple for us to practice. So that's why we don't want to practice Bhakti Yoga. But if it is so simple, why are they not taking it up, right? But Prabhupada says that whatever so-called Bhakti Yoga they are practicing is very simple, but the actual Bhakti Yoga which devotees practice is not that simple. So it may look, the process is easy, but it will take a long time. That's why Krishna says, out of thousands of people, only one know about him, and that is because they have practiced bhakti. Only through the practice of Bhakti Yoga, one will know him in truth. So, can anybody know Krishna in truth? In 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjana. He says that whoever knows Krishna in truth, they will never come back to this material world. So, knowing Krishna is not so easy. It's really rare. So that's what Krishna is telling in this verse about the rarity of devotional service and how this devotional service is not cheap and it is very rare. So this first 3 verses of Bhagavad Gita, first 3 verses of the 7th chapter gives the importance of knowledge. And what is the importance of knowledge and how rare it is and how by hearing only we can attain perfection. Now Krishna talks about the next section, that is from 4 to 12, Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, that what are his different energies. So it starts with verse number 4, which is Bhumirapo nalo vayu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritidashtada. Anyone can read.
Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligent and false ego, all together these 8 constitute my separate material energies.
So Krishna is talking about 8, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are the 5. These are the Pancha Mahabhutas. And there is subtle ones, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. These all 8 constitute his bhinna, which means separated material energies. So in the Prabhupada, in the purport, Prabhupada says that the science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God, that is, who is Bhagavan, and his diverse energies. And this material nature, which is this, all these different 8 constitute, they are all prakriti or material nature. And in the first part of this purport, Prabhupada talks about what is the position of God and how is it in relation to this material nature. Then he talks about how the Karnodakshayi Vishnu, he is an expansion of Krishna who is a cause of this Mahat Tattva. And from Karnodakshayi Vishnu, when he exhales, this is there in the Bhagavatam, that when he exhales, thousands and thousands of universes emanate from his body, and each universe, Krishna again enters as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And from the navel of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu comes Brahma from lotus, and on the lotus Brahma is born. And Brahma creates all the living entities. And Krishna again, he goes as a Paramatma in each and every individual soul, and also into each and every individual atom. Krishna expands as the Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. So in that way, if you see, Krishna is the source of everything here. From Mahavishnu, Karnodakshayi, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. So that establishes the position of Krishna as the Supreme Bhagavan. And then, now in that relationship, you can see these material ingredients which are used to constitute this universe are all his separated energies. Though they are separate, still they are part of Krishna's energies only. Okay. All right. And if you see the modern scientist, Prabhupada also mentions this in this purport, the modern scientists, what they do is, they are focusing only on those Pancha Mahabhutas. They work with earth, water, fire, air, ether. With this, they are trying to manufacture different chemicals, they are manufacturing spaceships, aircrafts, whatever is needed. But they don't know about the other 3. They have not touched upon the mind, intelligence, and false ego part of it because they have no idea what it is. So the Sankhya philosophy also focuses more on this only. But these are all separated energies of Krishna. But if you see, they are a different kind of energy, which we will see in the next verse, which is Apareyam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param Jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharayate jagat. Anybody online can also read? I don't know, we can't see you, so if someone wants to read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Beside these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature.
So Krishna is saying, besides those 8, whatever he mentioned in the previous verse, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises of the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So This is para prakriti. The previous was apara prakriti. But nonetheless, both are prakriti, which means to be enjoyed. So that is one point. Then the jiva or the living entity is called as a marginal potency, which means it is tathastha shakti. Tathastha shakti, the example Srila Prabhupada gives is that if you see there is ocean, there is water in the ocean, and then there's beach on the sand on this side, but there is some portion of the beach sometimes get wet because in contact with the water, ocean water, and sometimes it is dry because of the non-contact of the water. So this middle part, that is why it is called as tathastha, which means it could be influenced by the material or the spiritual energy. So this external energy, the previous one that we talked about, is inert, which means it cannot move on its own. But this para prakriti or the jiva shakti, this can cause things to move. So it is, the example is given that if an architect is there are all raw materials there. There is cement, there are bricks, there is water, there is sand, etc. But on their own, cement, bricks and everything cannot construct by themselves, right? They need some superior energy, that is para prakriti, which is jiva, to use his intelligence to put those things together and then build a skyscraper. So this para prakriti is moving this inferior energy to build or to construct things, but on their own they cannot move. But at the same time, this jiva, tathastha shakti, is not the supreme controller, because if the jiva was a supreme controller, then why is it being placed in Maya? Then something must be superior to the jiva shakti also, right? So that's why the jiva is a controller to some extent, individual controller, but not the supreme controller. So that is something that we have to differentiate also here. And there might be the jiva and the supreme soul, which is supreme controller Krishna, might have the same in qualities, but different in quantity. Because a jiva knows a soul. For example, Kamalakshi will know what is going on with her body. My hand is paining, my leg is hurting, my head is hurting, or I'm happy, sad. She will only know about herself. But can she know what's happening in your heart or your heart? What's happening with you? No. Because jiva has perception, but it is limited in quantity. But the Supreme Lord is unlimited, and he knows about everybody because he expands as a Paramatma or super soul in everybody's heart. So jiva is a controller, but not the supreme controller. Prabhupada mentions that. And why is jiva forgetting that he's part and parcel of Krishna? Is because he says this is because of the influence of the material energy, Maya. Here Prabhupada mentions this forgetfulness is due to the influence of the matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from this influence of material energy, then he can actually be liberated from this conditional stage. Okay? So this was about Krishna's inferior and superior energies. Now Krishna is summarizing these two, and he says in verse number 6, Etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagataha prabhava pralayastatha. Anyone online would like to read?
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, please go ahead. Sorry, we can't see you, so we don't know who is speaking. Please forgive us for that.
This is Shweta Mataji. I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Text 6. All created beings have their source in these two natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution.
Yeah. So he's saying that though there's both Prakriti are there, Para and Apara Prakriti is there, but still I am the source of these two. And he says he is the origin and the dissolution. When Krishna says he is the origin and the dissolution, there is, Krishna, actually Prabhupada mentioned here that spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. As opposed to the modern scientists who say that at a certain time Big Bang happened and the living entities are created, evolution happened. And they have been trying for many thousands of years to see how they can develop a living entity from material ingredients, like just by earth, water, fire, air, ether. With these, they are trying to create a human, but it has not been possible because it is not that the jivas started existing at a certain point. It says that jiva bhuta sanatana, they were existing eternally. It's just that they have been traveling from one place to another in the 8,400,000 species of life, going from one living entity to another living entity. But jiva was never created at a certain point. They always existed. And Krishna is the source of those. And this universe, as we mentioned earlier, that when Karnodakshayi Vishnu, he exhales, all the universes come out of his body from the pores. And when he inhales, all the universes go back into his body. So he is a source of creation and he is a source of dissolution. And a man, like Prabhupada explains, that a man can claim that he is the creator of the big skyscraper building he might have built. But nobody can claim that he is the creator of a big gigantic universe, because that can only be done by Krishna. He's the only one who can create this big universe. And Prabhupada calls him a big soul. We are all small souls. He is a big soul, the gigantic soul. Okay, then let's do the next verse. After telling that, Krishna is telling that I am the source of these two energies, then Krishna will tell something very interesting. Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. Anyone online would like to read?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, the first part here, Prabhupada talks about, if you see, there is no truth superior to me. Krishna is saying me, and everything rests upon me, right? There's me used in two places. Prabhupada says, there is common controversy over whether the absolute truth is personal or impersonal. But here it is stressed that absolute truth is a person, me. Krishna didn't say it is my energy. He said it is me. And he's saying everything is resting on me. So there is a very clear distinction that Krishna is talking that he is a person. And in Brahma Samhita also, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Satchidananda Vigraha, he's saying, is a form, is a person. That is there. And Prabhupada says, why people get confused about why he's considered not a person is that in the Vedas, in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, there is a description of Krishna, and here it says Tadarupam. There is a long verse, but there it is said that when they hear the word Arupam, they think that no Rupam, there is no Rupam. But Actually, what Krishna is saying is no material form, Roop, no material form, but actually there is a spiritual form of Krishna. Krishna has a spiritual form, Sachidananda Vigraha. He has his own abode, which is Goloka Vrindavan. He has so many people serving him, and pastimes are going on. So here it says that yes, Krishna is a person. And then Prabhupada also quotes the Shvetashvatara Upanishad to substantiate this. I will read the translation of that, which says, I know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conception of darkness, only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of the Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest and is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illuminates the transcendental sky. And as a tree spreads the roots, he spreads his extensive energies. So then he's saying that how Krishna is a person, and he's dissipating his energies all over. And the beautiful analogy given here is the pearls are strung on a thread. You can see when you see a pearl necklace, all you see is pearls. I don't see anybody wearing a pearl necklace here. But you can see the pearls, but nobody can see the thread. So Krishna's energies are like that, you know. But without the string, can the pearls stay together? No. So Krishna is like that. Everything is resting on him, but nobody can see him. Okay. Text number 8. Now Krishna is going to, now that he talked about his energies, now he's going to talk about how we can see Krishna as an essence in everything. So he's going to talk about how Krishna is the taste of water and all those things. So in everything, whichever is the essence, that essence is Krishna. So people, even impersonal, like in an impersonal way, if somebody wants to experience Krishna, these are some of the ways actually you can see Krishna. Okay, so let's start with this. Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasami sasi suryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdake paurusham rishu. Anyone online? If not,
Hare Krishna.
yeah,
Hare Krishna.
O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you see how Krishna is pervading everywhere in this world, if you take a drink, if you take water, right? If you drink water, the taste of that water is Krishna. Can you drink a salty water from the ocean? No, it's too salty. So the active principle or the essence of the water is the taste, and that taste is Krishna. And next one he says that Prabhasami Sasi Suryayu. So Shashi and Surya is moon and the sun. What is the essence or the most active principle of a sun and a moon? The light, right? And that light is actually coming from Krishna. So that is what Krishna mentioned. And Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. So the Omkar that is mentioned in the Vedas, Om, is an indirect way of addressing Krishna. And that Omkar is Krishna again. So a lot of these impersonalists who do not want to say Krishna's name directly, they actually say Om, indirect way of addressing Krishna. But that essence is also Krishna. And Prabhupada here actually is saying that even though Krishna is there in Goloka Vrindavan, all the way on the top, still because of these different energies, we can still perceive Krishna here with us, next to us. So each time you drink water, you can think of him, you know. Each time you see the sun and the moon, the light, you can think of Krishna. So he is always there, present everywhere. So this will help us to think of him more and more. Okay. Text number 9. Oh, actually, there is another important point that Prabhupada makes in this verse is about the Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. Impersonalist says that that Krishna is not a person. There's only Jyoti, there is light. But personalists or the devotees know that Krishna exists in Goloka Vrindavan, but still through his energies he can stay here. So we accept, devotees accept both personality as well as impersonality simultaneously. And that is the principle that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach, which is the Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Okay? We'll do 2 more verses and we can pause for questions, so we can complete this section. Text number 9. So these are different other aspects Krishna is mentioning, how we can perceive him. Punyo gandha prithivyam cha tejas chasmi vibhavasau jivanam sarva bhuteshu tapas chasmi tapasvishu. Anyone online? If somebody hasn't gone.
Krishna.
Namataji.
Yeah.
So translation, I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics.
Okay. So this is punya, which means mentioned here as something which is not decomposed or something original. So a lot of things nowadays we see made in China, a lot of things which are mixed, which is not original, right? This unmixed, the raw, real fragrance that comes is actually from the earth, that is Krishna. I don't know if you know, but in India back when the first rain starts, the smell that used to come from the earth, so beautiful, so fragrant, right? That original, uncontaminated fragrance is Krishna. You know, that is what Krishna is saying in this. It's original. So everything in this material world, Prabhupada says, has an original fragrance, and that original fragrance is Krishna. Only original, not mixed ones. Nowadays people mix a lot of chemicals, and then they come up with some new flavor. Not that, but the actual original one is Krishna. And other one Krishna says is that I am the heat in the fire. And you know that how Prabhupada mentions that how for the factories to run, you need heat. Electricity is also one kind of heat. Without that, no factory runs. Forget about the factories. For you to digest the food that you eat, aham vaishvanaro bhutva, without the fire of digestion, you cannot even digest the food that you ate. So that fire of digestion, that original fire, that is Krishna. And then he says that he's the life of all that he lives, and he is the penances of all ascetics. So everything in essence, wherever you see, is all Krishna. Let's do the next verse, 10th. Bijam mam sarva bhutanam vidhi partha sanatanam buddhir buddhimatam asmi tejas tejasvinamaham. Online, someone would like to read?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
O son of Partha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men.
Wow. And here Krishna says that I am the original seed, the bijam. The bijam means as a seed, the original seed of all that existences. So if you see, there are 8,400,000 species of life, and every species, the original seed is Krishna. I mean, it is very hard to fathom, but it is all Krishna. And then he says, if somebody is doing something outstanding, intelligent things, that intelligence is coming from Krishna. And the prowess of a powerful man is Krishna. So all the essence is Krishna. You can do the next verse, 11. Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshabha. Online?
Hare Krishna, I can go next.
Yes.
I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna.
Jai. Thank you. He says that the strength of the strong, but not any strength. People who are not boasting about their strength, which is devoid of passion and desire. That original strength, that is Krishna. And then he says that I am the sex life which is not contrary to religious principle, which means that for procreation, purely to bring devotee children, that again is Krishna. And this is what he's addressing to Arjuna. And the last one in this section, this verse, is Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasastamasa ye matta eveti tan vidhi natvaham teshu te mayi. Anyone online still who has not gone?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Brajalata Devi Dasi.
Jai.
Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Hare Krishna.
So, this verse, if you see the previous 14 different principles that we talked about, water, the fragrance of earth and everything, all these have their origin in the modes of material nature. Now Krishna is trying to clarify that all these more states of being, whether they be of goodness, passion and ignorance, they are manifested by his energy, but he is independent of them, which means he is not affected by the modes of material nature. He's making this very clear. They are in him, but he is not in them. So that's what Krishna is saying in this verse. So the example that Prabhupada gives is that by the direction of the leader or a president, a prison house or a prison cell is built and all the laws are made for the prisoners. But if you see, the president or the leader is beyond those rules, because they don't bind him, but he actually can make those rules for the living entity. So the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness, though they are coming from this energies, he's not bound by them. That's what Krishna is trying to clear in this verse. Therefore, sometimes Krishna is called Nirguna. Nirguna doesn't mean that he doesn't have any qualities. Nirguna means that he's beyond the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. He's pure. So this is the section that we can actually take a pause to see if anybody has any questions, any comments, so that we can go to the next section after this one. Online, if we cannot see you if you raise your hand, so you have to speak up if you have anything to say or if you have a question.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
So you mentioned about Achitya Bheda Bhed Tattva. Can you please elaborate for that?
Yeah. So Krishna is simultaneously one and different. So this is called as the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which means Krishna can be personal, at the same time his impersonal aspect can also be perceived. For the example given here is that if a person is speaking on a dictaphone, right? And when you hear that person speaking on the dictaphone, you know that is separate from him, and the person is different. You know these two energies are different. But with Krishna, the energy of his energy and himself, they both are one and the same. It is not for us. For us it is different, but for Krishna it is one and the same. That is why he is called as, he simultaneously one and different, which means he can be present in Goloka Vrindavan. At the same time, by his energies, he can be diffused everywhere in this world. So that's why he's one. At the same time, he's different in his energies. Did that make sense, Prabhu?
Yes, Mataji. I think that is the example we mentioned that, okay, he's mentioning मैं जल का स्वाद हूँ. That means I'm taste of water. That is how.
Yes.
Similar meaning. Yeah.
Correct.
Thanks, Mataji.
Through his energies, he is like in diverse everywhere, but he's still the original personality. Any other questions? Okay. If not, we can move to the next section. So, till now, Krishna talked about all this different knowledge, and then he talked about how he is beyond these modes of material nature. Now, in text number 13, Krishna says, Tribhir gunamayir bhavair ebhi sarvam idam jagat mohitam na bijanati mamebhya paramavyayam. And even online, if still would like to. Okay, everybody's finished online. Maybe we can do here in the room.
Hare Krishna, translation. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible.
So, in the previous verse, Krishna said that I am above the modes. And Krishna says, earlier, Krishna talked about the knowledge about himself. So, knowledge about Krishna leads to surrender out. Like, if you know somebody is really, really great, right? You want to follow that person. Even in this world also, you see some great personality or someone, then you actually want to follow that person. But here also Krishna is saying all these things about him which should make us to surrender. But ignorance of Krishna will lead us to bondage. So why is somebody ignorant of Krishna? Even though Krishna is saying, I am the taste of water, I am the fragrance in the earth and everything, but why are people not surrendering to Krishna? Then Krishna is saying, this is because of the three modes of material nature. Because they are deluded by these three modes, that is goodness, passion and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above and inexhaustible. So here Krishna is mentioning not just ignorance and passion, he is also talking about goodness. Because sometimes people are in the mode of goodness also, but still they are stuck with that mode of goodness. They want to do good deeds and they want to do pious things and everything like that. But Krishna cannot be reached just by mode of goodness. You should transcend the mode of goodness and you have to come to Shuddha Sattva, which is above the mode of goodness, to understand him. So that's why he's saying that because of the modes of material nature, it is very difficult. That's why instead of surrendering to me, they are actually stuck with this, which is in the bondage. And it's not that Krishna just tells you the problem, saying that, hey, you are all stuck here in the modes of material nature, so you're here doomed. No, Krishna gives a solution. That's the next verse, which says, Daivihi esha gunamahi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapajyante mayam etam tarantite. Someone can read here.
This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
Here, when Krishna is talking about these modes, he's saying this divine energy, Daivi. He's not saying this material energy. It's not. The reason it is Daivi because anything which is connected to Krishna is divine. So that's why he calls it as Daivi, that is because of the connection with Krishna. And he says that this is very difficult to overcome. This material world is called as Durga. Durga means difficult to overcome. And although the living entities are part of Krishna's energy, because the Maya or the material modes are also Krishna's energy. Because of the tathastha nature, the living entities are not able to overcome. They know that the spiritual energy is there and there's material energy, but because the association of the modes of material nature, they become baddha or bound. So he's baddha or eternally conditioned. And the word here, gunamayi, guna sometimes is also referred to as ropes. Ropes means somebody is tied, right? So let's say if I tie Prabhu with the ropes completely tied, he can't move his hands or legs. But maybe, maybe you can move a hand just a little bit, but he cannot move any further. So sometimes what happens is just a little bit of movement of his hand, this much, he thinks he's free, because if a person who is bound by the ropes for so long, a little movement you see, you think, oh, I can move a little bit, I can move. But can he free by himself? No. A bound person cannot free on his own, but only a liberated person can. Be liberated means who are not bound by the ropes. They can untie and remove the ropes of that person. So Krishna, he is beyond. In the previous verse, he said that he is beyond the modes, right? So Krishna or his devotees can help us liberate from these ropes of this material nature. That's why he says that whoever surrenders unto Krishna, Krishna actually helps them to untie these ropes of material nature. Okay. One nice point that Prabhupada makes in this purport, he says that devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of illusory energy, can order the insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the conditioned surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity who is originally a beloved son of Krishna or the Lord. So even though these laws of material nature are very, very stringent, but since they are all controlled by Krishna, if Krishna says you release, it will be released. And here the paternal affection for the living entity is very, very endearing, because everybody is Krishna's child. And Krishna wants them, for all of us, to be relieved. But it's just that we turned away from Krishna. So if there are children, some children, they drift away. They don't want to listen to the parents. What can the parent do? They just let them go. But if the son is obedient, then the father takes special care for that child, right? So that's the devotee's position. If you surrender unto Krishna, then he'll help you to free you from this bondage of this material world. Okay. And now, so Krishna told, for you to be freed, you can just surrender to me, then I will liberate you. Now the next section is, then why people don't surrender to Krishna? He's telling very clearly, just surrender to me, I'll free you. But why people are not surrendering? He talks about this next verse. Namam duskritu no mudha prapajyante naradhama mayaya pahrita jnana asuram bhavam ashritaha. Translation, anyone? It's not on, Prabhu. No.
Jai Shri Krishna. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of ascetic or atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me.
So here Krishna talks about 4 kind of duskritinas. Duskritinas are the people who do not surrender unto Krishna. And Krishna starts with the first one, who is actually mudha. You know what a mudha is? Mudha is foolish. So the example is given here that most of the people in this world fall into this category who are lifting the heavy burden of this material world for something very, very meager. They are not interested in spirituality. They are just unconsciously doing activities every day. The example is given of a ass, or in India we call donkey. What does a donkey do? It carries heavy burden, load on its back for its master to take from one place to another. In reward, what does the donkey get? Little piece of grass. And the grass is already available on the way for the donkey to eat. It doesn't have to carry the burden of that heavy load from one place to another. And what happens in the end? At the end, you get some little piece of grass, and then you get kicked by the master all the time to, go ahead, go faster, go slow, or whatever that master wants you to do. So just for that little piece of grass. So these kind of people, Krishna categorizes them as mudha, which means foolish. Just for meager living, you don't have to bear the burden of this material world and not inquire of the spiritual world. That is mudha. And the second category is naradhama. Naradhama are people who are not mudhas, of course, but even though they have an opportunity and who even exposed to bhakti about spirituality, they still do not take it. So that's why they are called as lowest among mankind, which is naradhama. They are not interested. But the devotees of the Supreme Lord, they are so merciful that they go even to these naradhamas and they try to give the bhakti yoga to them. If you see Nityananda Prabhu, Jagai and Madhai, they were originally Brahmanas, but now they have stopped doing bhakti and they started doing all kinds of nonsense. But Nityananda Prabhu went and fell at their feet, said, please take to bhakti, Krishna consciousness. And then, so the devotees of the Lord are more merciful. Even to Naradhamas, they go and preach. Of course, we also preach to ignorant and everybody. That is the glory of the devotee. But this is the second category. And the third category is the Maya Pahrita Jnana. Maya Pahrita Jnana means whose intelligence is stolen by material illusion. So these are the people who study and give commentaries about the Bhagavad Gita, but they actually portray Krishna as Mayavad, Krishna as a material body. So these are the people who we should probably avoid, and we should also not listen or not hear to their commentaries because they are trying to propagate the Mayavad philosophy. And the fourth one is called as Asuram Bhavam Ashritaha. Asuram Bhavam Ashrita means these are totally openly atheistic. They are demoniac. They don't want to follow any scriptures, and they just want to. They're envious of the Supreme Lord. That is the Asuram Bhavam Ashrita. That is the fourth category. So these are the four categories who do not surrender unto Krishna. But that's a different story, that how the devotees of the Supreme Lord still go and preach to all these categories, but Krishna says these are the four categories, do not surrender to Krishna. Okay, so now after saying who will not surrender to Krishna, Krishna gives the four categories who surrender unto Krishna. And these are called Sukritina. And verse number 16, Chaturvidha bhajante mam Jana sukritinarjuna artho jignasur artharthi jnani cha bharatarshabha. Translation.
The best among of Bharatas, for kinds of pious men being to render devotional service unto me, the distressed, the desirous of wealth, the inquisitive, and he he who is searching of knowledge of the Absolute.
Okay. So these four that they are mentioned here, they are not unalloyed devotees, they are alloyed. You know what is an alloy means? Mix of two metals, they make it an alloy, right? So they want to perform bhakti, but at the same time, they have some motive for them. So the four ones, first one it is artho. Artho means, Krishna says here, oh, whatever is not there. Okay, artho means the one who is in distress. So the example could be Gajendra. Gajendra was distressed. When he was distressed, he approached the Supreme Lord. Artha is distress. Jignasu, the inquisitive. The sages of Naimisharanya, they were inquisitive. They wanted to know who was the absolute truth. They approached Krishna. The third is Artharthi, which means for some wealth. Anyone can give example who approached Krishna when they wanted wealth? Dhruva Maharaj, yes. Dhruva Maharaj wanted wealth. He wanted a kingdom greater than his own father, so he approached Krishna. And fourth one is Jnani, which means that who has knowledge about the Absolute, and he wanted to know more about who is Krishna and what is the absolute truth. And this is like Shukadev Goswami. So these are the four categories of people who approach Krishna. And even though they are alloyed devotees, it is always better, or the best way is to approach Krishna to fulfill your desires. Of course, bhakti should be anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhanavritam anukulena krishnanu shilanam bhakti ruttama. So we want, the topmost devotional service that we want to perform is unalloyed, which means, and we don't want any motive in our service to Krishna. We wanted to serve Krishna because we love Krishna and we wanted to do what he wants to do. But if we were not there in that situation, you still approach Krishna and try to get your desires fulfilled. Because once you start worshipping Krishna in association of devotees, your desire will also be purified. And then once your desire is purified, then slowly, you will get to the stage of unalloyed devotee. The example Prabhupada always gives is about milk and an ink. If you initially start pouring milk into an ink bottle, it is still blue. Initially, it is all blue. But you keep pouring the milk into the ink bottle like that. Soon, someday, the ink will go away and you'll see only milk. So similarly, even though you have material desires, you start associating with devotees of Krishna, and then slowly the desire will be purified. And you become the pure devotee. And also it is mentioned that these some people, these dry philosophers and everything, speculators, they try to speculate on the supreme absolute truth, or they have different, or even if these karmis who have a lot of desires and everything, they worship Krishna and they get their desire fulfilled a little bit, but after a certain point, they think, I'm done. I don't want to need to do with this material. I'm frustrated with this one. Then they do an unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. So either ways, whether you have desires or not desires, you worship the absolute truth. There is a verse in Bhagavatam, I think it will come in the next few verses, which is akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udharidi tivrena bhakti yogena. So which means that whether you have desires or no material desires, always worship the all Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. So that's very encouraging for me at least. Next is verse 17. Okay. Tesham jnani nitya yukta eka bhaktir vishishyate priyo hi jnani notyartham aham sa cha mama priyaha. Anyone can read the translation?
Of these, The one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him and he is very dear to me.
So Krishna is mentioning among these 4 kind of Sukritinas who approach him, he's saying that one who is in knowledge, plus he's performing the devotional service, he is the best, because that Krishna is dear to him and he is dear to Krishna. It is talking about the pure devotee, and okay, this is very encouraging, I felt. Let me read this part of the purport. Let me see. Okay. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be an eternal servant of God. So, by association with pure devotees, the inquisitive, the distressed, the seeker after material amelioration, and the man in knowledge all become themselves pure. But in the preparatory stage, the man who is in full knowledge of the Supreme Lord and at the same time executing devotional service is dear to the Lord. So, which means it is so encouraging, right? Even though you're not that stage, if you just continue to do this process, you'll still get to that stage. So, that's very encouraging. We'll do the verse number 18. Udara sarva evaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam astita sahi yuktatma mame vanuttamam gatim. Anybody would like to read the translation?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, go ahead.
All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal.
So this is very nice. Krishna is saying, it's not that those other devotees are not dear to me. He said Jnani is the most dear, but it's not that those others are not dear to me. And Prabhupada writes in the purports, he said, it is not that devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all these are magnanimous because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called Mahatma or a great soul. Right? Are you happy listening to this one? I am. So out of affection, so this is also, let me read this purport few lines, it's beautiful. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because there is an exchange of affection. Out of affection, they ask the Lord for some material benefit. And when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in devotional service. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. So it's nice that, out of exchange, they ask for something. If you see your children, they really love you, but sometimes they come and ask, can I please have this candy or something? And then, out of affection, there's an exchange. But eventually, you will know when the time progresses that how the love and affection is actually pure. Of course, in this material world, you cannot have an example of what happens with Krishna, but this is the closest that you can get in this world. So, the next thing is, after Krishna explained that Jnani is the most dear, and then these are all magnanimous souls, then these Jnanis can reach the spiritual world, then Krishna is telling about how this person who comes to this complete knowledge, how is the most rarest of the rarest of the rarest of the rarest souls. So, text 19. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabhaha. Sudurlabhaha. Okay, someone can read the translation.
After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare.
Sudurlabha, like durlabha means rare. Sudurlabha means very rare, you know. It's so this kind of a person is very, very rare. So even though in this material world some people may be inclined towards knowledge, and they may get a little bit inclined towards the impersonal Brahman realization. Because if you see, there is a scale, if you see the number line, there is middle is 0, there is a negative, and there is positive. The negative numbers is the afflictions we feel in this material world, you know, the kind of tossing and turning that happens, the kind of pain that you go through. Someone can come to the point saying that, you know, no more, you know, like no mas. I just want to come to give up everything. I want to be merging into the impersonalism. That is actually coming to a point of 0. That means it is in the center. But once you know that you are a spirit soul, what are you doing about it? What is the positive action that you're doing? That is devotional service and bhakti. Once you know your constitutional position as a spirit soul, how you act in that position, that is the positive numbers on the number scale. And that positive numbers is the one Krishna is talking about, who he surrenders unto him and performs positive devotional service. And so he's saying that after many, many births, someone comes to the knowledge and to come to the point that Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that is Krishna as a Supreme Personality of God, it is all in all. To come to that point is the rarest of the rare souls. Okay, so till now Krishna explained the different categories of devotees who surrender to Krishna. Some for the material desire, some for knowledge, but still they surrender to Krishna. Now, what happens to people who have the material desires, but they do not surrender to Krishna, but they go to demigods? So the next section, 20 to 25, Krishna talks about the demigod worship. This is really sweet. I mean, when I read about this demigod worship, I was thinking, who can be more merciful than Krishna? But let's read. 20. Kamaistaiste hritagyana prapajjantenya devata tam niyamamasthaya prakritya niyatasvaya. Someone can read the translation?
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Those whose intellect has been stolen by material desires surrender on to demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures.
So, Krishna says here that whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, surrender unto the demigods. So, in the previous, we quoted this verse from Bhagavatam, akama sarva kamova, means doesn't matter the translation here, it says that in Srimad Bhagavatam it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender unto Vasudeva and worship him. But less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. So, because they are in the lower modes of material nature, they want quick results. So, do we think that if the desires that are being fulfilled by worshipping the demigods, are they the best results? Okay, examples. One example we can take is that Vritasura, he went and prayed to Lord Shiva for what? I mean, after so much of tapasya, after so much of austerity, Lord Shiva came and asked, so, yeah, what do you want? He says, I want a benediction that if I touch somebody's head, they should just turn into ashes. What kind of benediction is this, You work so hard and you ask that, if I touch somebody's head, they should just turn into ashes, I mean, no wonder they don't go to Krishna, because Krishna never fulfills these kind of desires. Because Krishna knows what is best for the devotee. So that's why they want quick results. So Lord Shiva is Ashutosh, He cannot say no. That's his soft nature. This heart is so soft that anybody who approaches him, he just gives them benediction. Though it may not be good for him, but still, if it's like a child who comes and asks the father, I want to put a finger in the fan. And the father says, no, don't do it. But they don't listen. Then sometimes the fan speed is reduced and the father actually lets the child put and just get a shock a little bit, right? So similarly, what can you do even though you know the best for the child, you don't listen? Then that's why they go to the demigods, asking them for their desires to be fulfilled. And also the Vedas also confuse people, because the Veda says that if you are deceased, you go and worship sun god. If you want a good wife, go and worship Uma, Parvati, who is husband of Lord Shiva. So already they mention all of these easy methods so that they can get quick results. So that's why, because their intelligence is stolen because of this material desires, they want to go and worship the demigods. But just see how Krishna is merciful here too. Text 21. Yo yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchutam ichhati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Anyone online?
I can read, Mataji.
Yes.
I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity.
Okay. Here, somebody has a desire, like let's say I have a desire to worship some demigod. Then Krishna, because he's a super soul, right? He's in the heart of the devotee and he's also in the heart of the demigod. So he makes that devotee's faith steady so that the devotee can actually devote himself to that demigod, perform whatever worship that is needed for that demigod. Why would Krishna do this? He knows that this is not good for the devotee. Then why would Krishna do this? We might think, right? Krishna doesn't want to interfere with anyone's independence. Because if Krishna said that, the devotee wants to worship them and he says, it's not good for you, so I'm not letting you do that, then it becomes that Krishna has not given full independence to that devotee. So he doesn't interfere with the independence. He says, okay, if you want to go ahead, I will give you the full freedom to do it. Because attaining Krishna is 100% by your own free will. If you want to go somewhere else, Krishna will not interfere with that. That is in one way sad, but the other way, because Krishna wants to fulfill that devotee's desire, he just gives the steady faith in that devotee so that he can worship that demigod. Because he's not interfering with the independence. So here it is mentioned that both the living entity and the demigods are subordinate to the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the living entity cannot worship the demigod by his own desire, nor can the demigod bestow any benediction without the supreme will. So that we'll see in the next one. And here it is also stated, this part, the demigods cannot infuse the living entities with such an affinity to worship them, because he is a supreme lord, or the super soul is present in the hearts of the living entities. Krishna gives the impetus to a man to worship certain demigod. So the demigod themselves do not have that power to build that faith in that person to worship him. But Krishna, being the super soul, he has that power to create that faith in that person. I mean, wow. Okay. Let's do text 22. Still demigod worship going on here. Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasyaradhanamihate Labate cha tatah kaman mayaiva vihitan hitan. Anyone online can read?
I can read. Okay. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone.
So he will worship the demigod with that faith, and then the demigods actually bestow those benedictions for those living entities. But we know that not a blade of grass moves without the permission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That benediction is also bestowed by Krishna through that demigod. So, I mean, you see how futile it is to go around. Instead, you could go to Krishna directly. But there's some really nice points here Prabhupada makes. I wanted to read. So the worship of demigods and the achievement of their desired results are due not to the demigods, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by arrangement. Okay? The less intelligent living being entity do not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefit, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. So this is a good lesson. Some people go and pray to Krishna for some material benefit. If it doesn't happen, we should understand it is not meant to be. Here, Prabhupada says very clearly that this happens when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. So if you go to a demigod indirectly asking you to fulfill that, maybe that desire will be fulfilled, but it may not be the best thing for you. Okay? So better your desire is not fulfilled rather than getting something which may not be the best. So Vritasura's example, right? He got the benediction. Like Lord Shiva gave him. What happened? He burnt his own self with that, right? So when you go and ask Krishna for some benediction, Krishna will not give you something which he knows will not be beneficial for you in the long run. So we may be able to connect the dots backwards, but at the moment when the desire is not being fulfilled, we may not be able to see why. So it's very difficult, but if you continue in the process of devotional service and Krishna consciousness, when you purify yourself, then you can see why, in the long run, you will understand why those desires were not fulfilled. And Prabhupada also says that for a living entity who desires to return home back to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord is therefore not awarded the material benefits desired by less intelligent living entities. So don't worry if any of your desires are not being fulfilled. There's a better plan for you. Krishna has a better plan for you. Okay, let's move on to the next verse, 23. Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavayatyalpamedhasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Anyone online left? Sorry, we can't see you, so...
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and the fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Thank you.
Okay, Krishna is very clearly saying, men with which intelligence? Small intelligence. They worship the demigods. And it says that whatever benedictions or fruits they provide, they are limited and temporary. If you see this material world, there are planets of the demigods, right? There are 14 planetary systems. Brahmaloka is the topmost. There is Devi Dham, Mahesh Dham. Different dhams are there, even within this material world. So, in this planetary system, when the Mahavishnu inhales, all the planetary systems go back to his body. So which means it is temporary, right? So the results that are obtained by worshipping the demigods are also temporary. Okay, that is one thing. And the second point which Krishna says is very important. He says, those who worship demigods, they go to the planets of the demigods. You worship Indra, you go to Indra planet. Chandra, Chandra planet. You go to Varuna, worship Varuna, you go to Varuna planet. If you worship Brahma, you go to Brahma's planet. Shiva, you go to Shiva's planet. But my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So this is a very important point that needs to be said, that, some people say, doesn't matter who I worship, doesn't matter if I worship anybody, I will go to the highest planet. Is that correct? If you take a train to Delhi, will you reach Calcutta? No, you reach Delhi. But some people say that because the demigods are part and parcels of Krishna, they say that if you offer to one part, it reaches the whole. That's the point they try to make. So the argument Prabhupada makes in this case is that if you try to feed your hand, does it reach your stomach? If you try to feed your ears, does it reach your stomach? Your eyes, does it? No. Krishna says that it has to come through your mouth into the stomach, right? So any unauthorized process cannot guarantee you that you will get the highest destination. So that's what Krishna is mentioning, that if you just worship any demigod, you don't reach the supreme planet of Krishna. If you worship Krishna, yes, you'll go to the supreme abode of the supreme planet, but not otherwise. Okay. Let's do this one verse and then maybe we can pause. I don't think we have much time anyway. Okay, 24. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhayaha param bhavam ajananto mama vyayam anuttamam. Anyone would like to read online? If not, we can read from here. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Thank you.
Okay, so after Krishna speaks about this demigod worship, Krishna talks about this impersonalists or Mayavadis. These kind of people say that Krishna was impersonal before, but now the form that he actually has taken is Maya. This form, this is material form. And these are Mayavadis, and Prabhupada says that we should, they're called as Abuddhayaha. Abuddhaya means not intelligent. The previous verse, Krishna said, Alpamedhasa, which means they have small intelligence, right? And here it says no intelligence, for people who think that Krishna's form is impersonal and Maya, So that is the section of this one. And there are beautiful points here made that no one can understand Krishna on their own. Krishna can be understood fully only by his mercy. There is a verse, that is beautiful verse, that from Bhagavatam 10:14-29, Prabhupada quotes, Athapite deva padambujadvaya prasadaleshanugrihita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chiram vichinvan. It says that only for those who have gotten the favor of Krishna by his grace, only they can understand Krishna fully. No one else can understand him. Okay, we can take a pause at this section because the last section is next 5 verses. Anyone has any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranams, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for taking over this class today. It's lovely. There's a part in a purport where Srila Prabhupada has said that Krishna does not favor anyone specifically. He's, equanimitous to all. But then also in the scripture it had said, he is very dear to me and I am very dear to him. How can we understand that?
Yeah. So there's also similar of this given in the 7th canto, Bhagavatam as well in the beginning, that when it rains, right? When it rains, the rain falls on the stones, on the rocks, as well as on the fertile land. There's no partiality by the rain because it's showering mercy everywhere. But because of the land which is fertile, which has so much of appreciation for the rain, when the rain falls, it takes a full advantage of the rain. So Krishna is equal to everybody, but based on our appreciating capacity of his mercy, we could make use of it. That's why those of us has greater appreciating capacity, they take full advantage and they try to serve Krishna more, and then Krishna favors them. But there was no partiality on Krishna's part when he actually reigned equally. Does it help? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Mike.
Hi Krishna, Malini Mataji, Danvat Pranams. Thank you for your very nectarian class. I have a quick question. So, going back to Godhead is a spiritual goal. But I've also heard advanced devotees say that we do not, they don't necessarily want to go back to Godhead. They just accept and surrender in whatever circumstances or whatever birth Krishna decides to give them to. So then which is the higher, which is the better goal that we should strive for?
So for people who are in 2nd grade, right, then we learn mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2 and all those things. So at that stage, 2 + 2, 4 is equal to 4 is a big revelation for us, right? So initially, our goal can be a part where we want to get out of this entanglement of this material world, which is full of material miseries and everything. And as we are progressing to our goal, we could probably understand the higher quadratic equations and everything like that. So in our initial phase of Krishna consciousness, it's perfectly okay to have a goal to go back to Godhead. Because, of course, we don't belong to this material world. But the advanced devotees who are really advanced in serving Krishna, for them, it doesn't matter where they are, because they can never stay away from Krishna. If Krishna is performing some leela in some material world, they don't mind going there and serving them. If Krishna says to them, you go and preach, like Prabhupada came here to preach to Western world, Prabhupada just came. He didn't think whether I am in the spiritual world or material world. So that is for the higher advanced devotees. But for us, according to our qualification, it's okay to have a goal to go back to Godhead now. And when we feel advanced and when we realize the importance of serving Krishna to an extent where we can selflessly think that I can stay here in this material world and serve him, then it will automatically come. We don't have to worry about it. But so it's good to have that desire. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes.
Thank you for your nice class. I'm Kripatita Devi Dasi. My question is, earlier on you were talking about the different steps of the ladder of the different yoga processes, and you give the analogy that Bhakti Yoga is taking the elevator or lift. Now, what about people who go on this different yoga system? Is it that finally they can also switch? Will they switch to Bhakti Yoga, or what is the end point, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, at any point, anybody can switch to Bhakti Yoga if they get an association of a pure devotee. So they might be performing dhyana yoga, meditating on the Supreme, meditating on some aspect of the super soul, and they might come in contact with the pure devotee, and they can switch to bhakti yoga at any time. So bhakti yoga doesn't have a bar on who can actually come into devotional service. A neophyte can come who has no knowledge about any kind of yoga, or even the impersonalist. If you see Shukadev Goswami, example of Shukadev Goswami, when he was born from his mother, he was 16 years old, he was already liberated. He was liberated in an impersonal realization. But even Shukadev Goswami, when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, Vyasadeva sent some of his disciples to recite Bhagavatam to Shukadev Goswami. The moment he heard that, his natural inclination to serve the Supreme Lord awakened, and then he came back and he learnt about Bhakti Yoga and all aspects of it from his father, and then he, of course, perfected by speaking. So yes, there is no bar. Anybody can take up to Bhakti Yoga at any stage of their life.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Can you show verse chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, verse text 3 and 4? Hare Krishna, Kripatita Mataji, and Mansi Mataji, and others. Thank you for joining.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. 12th chapter, and yeah, so it just 3 and 4. If you look up, if you can just do, no, just the translation, please. Yeah, just the translation. If you can do the translation, please.
But for those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me.
So Krishna says, at last achieving me, which means they'll be there on a very, very long time on that path. Bahunam Janmanam Ante verse that tells here is the same thing that Krishna mentions here. So you can be on that path that you have chosen, on the jnana or on the dhyana, and you will continue to stay there indefinitely. But as Malini mentioned, there could be an intervention or an accidental chance of meeting a devotee that can propel you to that path. That could be a possibility as well. Is that helpful, Vipatita Mati?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you for the clarification. Because what my question was, I get the answer that Mataji explained, but I also was thinking of those people who are resolute on going on that path, and where will they ever, I've heard before that they will also ultimately can reach Krishna, but it's a long process.
So Mataji, please understand that they have even, the most important point is Vadanti Tattatoidas Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmiti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Satyate. Those who have achieved Brahman have achieved Krishna, but not the perfect understanding of Krishna. It is the same Krishna who is Brahman or Paramatma or Bhagavan, but the paths are different. So by that stretch of imagination, they have achieved Krishna, but not in completion. And that completion or the link between Brahman to Bhagavan has to have some via medium of a devotee, or in some extreme cases, the mercy of Krishna himself. As Malini mentioned, Shukadeva Goswami also is one example that it's mentioned.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we have a few more verses that we can quickly finish in next few minutes. So earlier when Krishna said in this verse that those people who are no intelligence at all, they think that Krishna is has a material form. Then now Krishna is saying, why even if people say that, why Krishna doesn't reveal himself to them? So text number 25. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritah mudhoyam nabhijanati loko mamajamavyayam. Anybody would like to read online, or we can take here? Prabhu, you want to read?
Hare Krishna. Translation. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible.
So Krishna doesn't manifest to the unintelligent and foolish is because Krishna reserves the right not to reveal himself to anybody. For Krishna is covered by his internal potency. It's not that Krishna is covered by internal potency. Our eyes are covered because we cannot see him. And Prabhupada quotes Kunti Maharani's, I think 1:8-19, which says, Maya Javanika Channam Agyadhoksham Avyajam. And then he quotes also from Ishopanishad, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyasyapi Hitam Mukham. So the devotee, Krishna's internal energy covers his eyes, so that, but either by effulgence or by other means, that the devotee cannot see the real form of Krishna. So the devotee is praying, please remove that covering so that I can see you as you are. So Krishna, unless he reveals himself to us, we can never know him fully in his original Bhagavan form. So that is the right Krishna reserves. We can do the next verse, which says, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. If you can please read the translation.
Hi Krishna. O Arjun, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows.
So previous verse, in the previous verse, it is said some people think that Krishna's form is material, right? In this verse, it says that I know everything that happened in the past, present, and future. If Krishna was just a human, we don't remember what happened in our past, not even in the previous lifetime, even in this lifetime, 20 years ago, what you did at this time, I don't know. But Krishna knows. Krishna knows the past, he knows the present, and he also knows what is yet to come in future. Only Krishna can say this one. So that's why it also refutes the argument that Krishna's form, Krishna's body is material like us. It cannot be. And also in the 4th chapter, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that to Arjuna, saying that I delineated this knowledge to Sun God previously, and then Arjuna asked a question, Sun God Vivashwan is so much senior to birth than you, then how is that you gave him this knowledge? Then Krishna explains. So that is also another one where it says it is not. Okay, we'll do in verse number 27. Sorry, rushing because we are over time. Ichadvesha samuthena dvandvamohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa.
O scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate.
So why is that then people cannot know him? Krishna says, I don't reveal myself to everybody. And why is that we cannot know him? Is this because of the duality of desire and hatred? Because of these dualities, people are stuck in this cycle. That's why they cannot actually know Krishna as he is. Then Krishna says, who can know him? That is verse number 28. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridavrata.
Translation: person who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful action are completely eradicated, are freed from the duality for delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination.
Yeah, so those who have acted piously in their previous and in this life, and they have eradicated all the sins, and who are free from this delusion, these dualities, they actually can engage themselves in Krishna's service with a determination. And let's do the next verse. Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatantiye te brahma tadvitu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakilam. Someone can read?
Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities.
So these kind of people who are endeavoring for liberation from this material world, they are the one who actually are entitled to know, they are actually called Brahman, and they can actually worship Krishna. And let's do the last verse, and I want to read the purport for the last verse, some part of it, because so the 29th and the 30th verses are a prelude to the chapter 8, because they are terms that Krishna introduces in this one. He talks about adhyatmam, karma in a different sense, and in the next verse he talks about adibhutam, adidaivam, adiyajnam. And all of these concepts he introduces, just says it, but he elaborates and starts with that in the next chapter, chapter 8. Okay, so last verse. Sadi bhutadi daivam mam sadi yagyam cha ye viduhu prayana kale picha mam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Kennedy, go ahead and read, finish it off.
Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death.
So this will be elaborated in the next chapter, but I want to read this paragraph in the purport. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servant of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. This is the best part I was saying. He's convinced that by his doing so means just by hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dridavrata, and it is the beginning of the Bhakti Yoga, or the transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This is the seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita is a substance of that conviction. So if we come to that stage of being that Dridavrata, which means fixed in conviction and knowledge, that just by if you take pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service, all your objectives are fulfilled. Just by hearing. Okay? Thank you very much. I know we are over time. I don't know if there are any other questions, but I think we have to stop here. It's 3:10, I guess, right? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Maybe we can take one question or any. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So when Krishna says he is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. So can you elaborate on, so are those objectives like the going back to Krishna, or like what can you like put some more detail in what those objectives mean? And thank you for your lecture. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. All your objectives, of course, our ultimate objective is to go back to the spiritual world. And there could be many interim steps in that objective. So just by starting this process of Bhakti Yoga, by hearing, then slowly all the, we read in the, I don't know if you were there in the beginning of the class, but we read about how Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna verse, where hearing starts and then how the heart is, contamination from the heart is removed and how you get fixed in knowledge, etc., and all those things. So it's a process in devotional service, but the ultimate objective, of course, is to serve Krishna with unalloyed devotion, and those objectives are fulfilled. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Shivas Prabhu, would you like to add anything? Any corrections, comments? Please go ahead.
No, thank you for the nice class.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Wonderful class.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.